I think one of the limitations that we have is perhaps Singaporeans not willing or not comfortable voicing out their concern. And that is somewhat embedded in our education system. We are kind of brought up that way.
I think the activism in the conventional Western sense is difficult in Singapore. The biggest barrier, of course, is the legal restrictions. In Singapore, vandalism is illegal, strike is illegal, and the only place you can give public speech is Hong Lim Park.
There are still certain restrictions and limitations, especially with regards to what you can say and certain boundaries that you cannot cross.
Singapore has never been known for its robust activism scene. Why is that? Is it because the activists face too many limitations here, or because Singaporeans are generally an apathetic bunch, that we just don't care enough? Hello, I'm Daniel Martin, and we're here in NTU to discuss with students about activism in Singapore. I have on the panel with me Assistant Professor Liu Kai Kyun from the Wee Kim Wee School of Communication and Information, NTU. Also, Louis Ng, Executive Director from Acres, and Rovik Roberts, founder of The Hidden Good. Do we have a robust enough activism community here in Singapore?
Taking action, does it mean just raising awareness, or does it actually mean taking action against people who go against those very social causes that we actually are looking at? Say, for example, the animal rights issue, if there are people who are abusing animals. So should we actually raise awareness about the animal rights, or should we actually go on the other end to basically raise our sword against those people who actually abuse the animals? I would say right now, based on the social media scene that I've personally experienced, it seems to be more about vigilantism in a way, where people actually post videos and links about negative things.
Society values have changed, that the cybersphere is now become another world in itself where a lot of interactions take place. But I think for us it's a mixture of two. I would not say the sword, but we would want to raise issues about injustice, and we want something to be done. It's not so much of the state stopping us from doing it, but we have the confidence in the government being able to take action on behalf of us for more just cause.
Okay, about the collaborations thing, it's not just about the bad behaviors. Louis, let me come to you about that. What are the markers that are holding activism back in Singapore from being more robust? Let's move on to that.
For activism to move further from where we are now, we need to get past the mindset where I've always identified a problem, but it is always the government that's supposed to solve it. I pay taxes. The civil servants get such a high salary. Of course, it's their job to solve all our problems. But we need to now start taking ownership of it. So in terms of our negotiations with the government as well, it's the same thing that we are preaching. So we go to the government, we say this is an issue, we provide constructive feedback, but the key now is providing the alternative. So we go to AVA and we say this is wrong and this is how we think it should be done, and give us a chance to do it. And I think empowering ourselves to make this change is the most critical step forward now.
Robert, you wanted to add something to that?
Yeah, there's a false dichotomy in Singapore. There's the government and then there's the individual. And there's no space in between for what I like to call the community, right? Because what people fail to realize is that if you get a few people together, you can do a lot of stuff. And I have seen that for myself. And the truth is that even though you can be a bit scared of what the regulations are going to be like, or what the impression is going to be like, as long as you decide to do something with a group of friends, right? People are going to latch on to you, people are going to come on to you, and you're going to get the buzz no matter what.
I guess probably for the past 50 years, the Singapore government has played such an imposing role, determining the way you live, the way you relate to your neighbors, how many % of each ethnic group can stay in a HDB flat. So it has been so overbearing that the first response is actually to look at the state. When you see dirt on the road, you complain to the town council. In fact, the town council even has an app for you to take photographs and upload it, and for them to take immediate action.
Oh, I didn't know about that. I got downloaded it.
It's effective, but may not be very good for community initiatives.
We all remember the incident last year when the Chinese SMRT bus drivers went on strike. I was quite saddened by how this whole thing was handled, because they were caught and sent back to China within a very short period of time. And so I'm just wondering, what's the activism scene in Singapore for migrant workers, and is it enough, and why is it important, and what should we do?
The migrant workers group have tried to engage lawyers for these workers. They have raised donations. So they have tried to ensure at least some form of representation. Without these groups, the story may have been completely different. These are a huge minority in Singapore, but completely forgotten, with not many rights. And it's actually more important for citizens to voice out their concerns for this group, because it also affects all of you. When the rights of the workers, these workers go down, yours will not go up as well, because they can engage someone that's cheaper and easier to dispense with.
Especially for migrant workers, there's a huge stigma around them. Singaporeans naturally tend to be very divided around the issue. And I guess the first step for any person approaching this would be to appreciate the complexity of it. Because if you were to be an activist, it's not as simple as rah, this is what I believe in. It's knowing what's the situation and seeing what's the best way to swerve in and change perspectives.
There is quite a strong economic impact as well. Obviously, with the foreign workers having more rights, it's probably means paying them more for a start. So there is an economic disincentive for helping them. And I think that is the major stumbling block at this point. But having said that, with animals, I think the issue is there is no economic incentive in helping animals, which is also why we probably in Singapore we're not helping the animals as much. I always stress that all the NGOs are not anti-economic progress. We're saying let's focus on economic pursuit, but place moral progress on par as well.
All the limitations when it comes to activism in Singapore, many groups have been getting around these constraints. How have they been doing that? And is that, as Rofiq mentioned, effective at all? Plus, we'll also be talking about in the next segment, hacktivism, which has become something very peculiar to our local climate. We're finding out more and learning more about it from a very Singaporean perspective. We'll pick up on this in the next segment, and you can join us by clicking on the next video for Talking Point live on campus here from NTU.